Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the Navarin. This Tier 9 Soviet battleship is a very interesting brawler, secondary focused battleship that is finally available again for a regular purchase. Or I should say maybe the first time it's available for regular purchase. Last year it came back only in loot boxes, and the year before when it was initially released, it was an Admiral bundle or loot boxes as well. I really do like that Wargaming are bringing these ships back, these event ships back, for a standard regular purchase. I know it's not a very high bar to clear, but it's nice to see 18,300 doubloons here for this Tier 9. Very standard price at this point. Although with Black Friday coming up, you still may want to hold off on it. But Navarin is a very, very strong Tier 9 battleship when you get into brawling range. The guns are not the most consistent. We have 1.4 Sigma battleship dispersion. I didn't even know they had regular ships with Sigma parameters that low. We do at least get 12 406s here though at Tier 9, so every once in a while that shell volume can make up for the poor dispersion. Here we have a broadside Napoli at 10 kilometers. And that was easily my best salvo I think I've ever had in Navarin. Got very lucky. It's pure RNG that one landed. I'll tell you, everything else seemed to be rather mediocre. But at the same time, it's still 12 406s at Tier 9, which works out reasonably well at closer ranges, even if it does feel like a shotgun. But one really nice feature is that the two rear turrets are actually 360-degree turrets, which was really convenient. Throughout this entire play session, I found myself feeling very comfortable while pushing in and constantly wiggling back and forth, keeping my ship angled, with the ability to always have my guns available, no matter what side I was turning to, at least while pushing. The front gun is not 360, but for the most part, if you're staying angled, Navarin is actually very, very tanky. This ship doesn't have a terribly large superstructure, and fortunately for us, we are retaining that special Soviet damage control, which we don't see on Sibir. Now, I know Tier 10, it's a newer ship, it's the bit of the flavor of the month, of course, but it's interesting to see a Tier 9 version of that, and one that we had already. I really, really value the damage control party here, being able to come back so much quicker, allowing me to not take nearly as much damage to fires. So if you're going to be taken down in this ship, it's really not burning down. It's more about getting caught on your broadside, because this has a gigantic citadel, or they just have to get through your armor plating, which isn't the easiest thing to do. It's very well armored, at least if you're not dealing with Columbo sap. Little foreshadowing, we'll just leave it at that. Long range into a carrier, well, it's not the best dispersion still. But these secondaries are important to talk about because they are nearly the best secondaries in the game. They're very, very close. We're at Schlieffen levels of hitting DPM here alongside the same accuracy as Schlieffen, so they're pretty consistent. They only have 22 millimeters of pen though, much like Sibir. Actually reminds me a lot of those. We covered that ship recently. And 9% fire chance allows us to have one of the highest fires per minute out of all the secondary ships. Which, to be honest with you, I got pretty unlucky while playing this ship. We did not see very many fires at all out of this thing. But that should be its primary strength, is lighting a lot of fires as well as dealing decent damage to superstructures. And also good damage into destroyers. The accuracy combined with their pen allows you to do a lot of damage into DDs if they open up within your secondary range. Valparaiso, obvious counterpart to this ship as well at Tier 9, coming back in the Steel Will event later this year. It's not going to be as tanky as a Valparaiso, fully blasting through its healing, but the guns are pretty nice if that ship gives you broadside. Both ships focused on secondary fire starting potential. You won't win a 1v1, I don't think, if the Valparaiso is playing well. You both have vulnerable broadsides, and that ship does have to go a lot more broadside to use all of its guns. We can use all of our turrets forward at a 30-degree angle, while Valparaiso has to fully expose that citadel. So there are things you can take advantage of there. Valparaiso, though, is kind of ridiculous, let's be honest. So it's not really that bad that Navarin wouldn't necessarily compete all the time. But 12 guns, I do think they're at close range going to be better than Valparaiso guns overall. Kiting angles are like 37 degrees backwards. We're also 406s, right? That has an advantage when it comes to overmatch, allowing us to full pen right through this rune Cruisers, of course, very difficult to play into overmatch, and while our dispersion may not be the best, it still nets us quite good damage when we're at these medium to closer ranges. Please just don't snipe with Navarin. Whatever you do, do not snipe with this thing. For the most part, I was trying to push up using islands, and it wasn't too bad a lot of the time to actually get closer using island cover, thanks to our great concealment as well. 12.1 kilometer detect with 11.3 kilometer maximum secondary range. Means the ship is pretty comfortable, able to disengage from situations where you don't want to be spotted, as well as allowing you to push up. The speed isn't amazing at only 27.5, but it's still decent enough that we can get around the map if we need to. I really did just have the best results when I was able to push up using islands, limiting who can shoot at me, especially my broadside. Very vulnerable there. And I got myself some very good games. I was actually kind of surprised at how well this went. Considering the matchmaker, you can often get it tier 9. That's my main complaint with ships at this tier. Being double up tiered into super ship games, obviously quite painful. But so is tier 10 a lot of the time these days, considering how people choose to play at tier 10. They're often pretty passive and not wanting to push in. In this one, we got ourselves a pretty nice brawl out at the C cap here. So nice and surprised by that. But a lot of the time, if you've been playing this game at high tier, you know what I'm saying. It seems to be pretty passive. So a ship that relies on getting closer secondary firepower, as well as just shotgun approach to main guns that need to be close range to have any sort of consistency out of them, you can see where that could be a little bit frustrating if you're going to be spending a lot of doubloons to get a ship like this one. Being a tier 9 premium means that you earn a ton of credits. I tried to include some of the credit end score screens as well, especially the last game. We get, I think, over 2 million credits, so great credit earners as always, but that's not special to Navarin. It's a lot of these tier 9 ships. So if you manage to do well in spite of the matchmaker a lot of the time, you can grind out a ton of credits. And surprisingly well, our armor is holding, although only 5 hits there on that broadside Colombo at 6 kilometers, 5 kilometers. Feels pretty bad, man. And he's been using AP. Yes, as soon as he swaps over to his sap, it doesn't end well for us. We actually have a 75mm upper belt on this thing, which is great against AP, great against HE, but Colombo's sap gets through it, so he absolutely crushes us there. Moving on to the last game I have for you, we have a, well, I don't want to call out this guy in particular, but right at the start of the map, Mecklenburg, full HP, pre-kited. His DD and cruisers have pushed up to caps around the island, and he's still like, at a certain point, it's a choice, right? We're choosing to play at the back of the map, which is quite disappointing, but at least it shows that we can still push up and have good games, even in matches like this one, because of islands. That's the key. We need maps with islands that allow us to push up and not get farmed down by people that are playing in the back of the map. We need to limit those firing angles, as well as just not pushing into enemy spawns. As always, we do not want to push spawns, so even though it's a bit risky to turn broadside here, tried to pick a moment where Petro was stuck behind his island, as well as Mecklenburg is just a little too far away to actually exploit our broadside here, so we can turn away. Not to go back to our spawn, but rather to angle to traverse the map towards the B cap here. Do not want to push enemy spawns. That's always going to end poorly, especially considering there's a United States super carrier in this one, which will kill us very quickly. The AA, not particularly good on this ship. Not that you needed me to tell you that, but I'll mention it again here. And to be honest with you, that's another reason we just don't want to push spawns. It allows us to play around our cruisers who should be playing around island cover, which generally will have stronger AA, or at least we have the ability to clump up in a death ball that hopefully will prevent drops that do a lot of damage to that Schlieffen regardless. Okay, we'll just ignore that for now. Broadside Petro gets smashed before our shells get there, but we get the Citadel, black ribbon there. And while we're here, I should probably mention that I've changed up my build slightly for a couple of these games, including this one, where I've dropped full secondary build and intentionally gone for a main gun build with some secondaries on the commander. We still get like 9.9 kilometers of secondary range, as well as manual secondaries, allowing us to have pretty good secondaries still at these closer ranges. However, it should make our guns more consistent, right? 7% dispersion can be a pretty big buff to our main guns. I haven't really noticed it, to be honest with you. I wonder if 1.4 Sigma is just so bad that we can't really tell the difference between a full accuracy build versus something that runs full secondary. I don't know, just a thought, but I did try it out here and it worked reasonably well. Not, I think, because the build is necessarily better, but because we put our ship in decent enough situations and we survived long enough that eventually we got some damage. Still pretty slow on getting damage out of these enemy ships, especially considering some of them are very light cruisers trying to fight us in the open water. We get 2 overpens on that Kuhorn. Yeah, pretty unfortunate. Trying to push in, of course, without a Hydro into something like a Jaeger is very, very scary. So very fortunate that our team is going to hopefully take them out, or at least we have cruisers applying a lot of pressure, and the carrier spotting is very frustrating to deal with, but in this case, it will allow us to push up towards this next island. Really not wanting to push enemy spawns, of course, and this next island will prevent a lot of damage if there's enemy ships in their spawn. Colombo, yet again, a very scary target to deal with. Broadside Johan, and I'm actually not going to be able to see that shot, but 1 overpen. Maybe he turned away in time and my aim was off, but is a little bit disappointing running the accuracy build and not really seeing a lot of difference. That Napoli Dev Strike was, in fact, with the full secondary build, so it feels more like a shotgun. Build it for those secondaries, try to get close range with it, don't try to play it for accuracy, because I really could not tell the difference. We get a decent number of secondary hits, but it does take a while to actually get any sort of fires out of it. I, again, just think I got a little unfortunate with the fires per minute out of this ship. Should be a lot better. But perhaps it was down to keeping this ship angled, or trying to, and our secondary DPM while we're angled isn't quite as good. We only get 80% of our secondaries to like 32 degrees, something like that. We got to give 55 degrees of broadside forward and 58 degrees of broadside backwards to get our entire secondary DPM from one side off. And that is way too broadside. You will take a ton of damage doing that because your Citadel is so gigantic. So maybe that's it too. We're not seeing quite as much out of these secondaries. Colombo goes down. We're tanking a little bit for our team. This potential damage figure is going to look pretty crazy by the end of the game. But let's be honest, we got a lot of airstrike ships that are going to be after us in a few seconds. Kuhorn, as well as Johan, as well as Guden, and then the carrier as well. So airstrikes tend to inflate potential damage numbers, but I still think this ship is quite tanky. It doesn't have the heal gimmick like Sibir, of course, but it also is less than half the cost of what Sibir was. I don't think that bundle is actually available anymore. So hopefully we see something like Sibir and these other event ships recently, Indiana as well, that are very expensive in these Admiral bundles. Maybe they can come back for normal purchase through this ship rotation. I'm a big fan of that ship rotation for that reason, okay? It's not great that they're pulling old ships from sale that have been available for years and years. That feels a little weird to me. But at least we're getting these event ships back. And I think Navarin is interesting, although there's a lot of secondary brawlers at tier 9. So maybe not necessarily worth getting if you already have a few of those other ones. Things like Pommern are secondary focused. You could get more gun focused ones that like to be closer range or try to get closer broadside shots. Like Jean Bart B coming up in Black Friday could be cool. Carl Johan also in Black Friday too. So you're getting a 15% discount on tier 9s at Black Friday, tier 10s as well at Black Friday. So could be worth looking into that as well. We get our fancy special commander here, Kuznetzov, always pretty overpowered on any ship that has healing, as well as a decent enough HP that you're not just instantly going to go down as soon as you proc that 10% heal damage control buff. It allows us to stay alive just long enough that we might get another shot here on this United States. And we get another heal, so we get to stack it. Surprisingly difficult to take one of these Soviet ships down. And not quite enough to finish off the United States, but we live a little bit longer. Kuhorn on the border. Tricky to aim these things, but now that he's slowed down enough, we should have pretty easy shots into him. And 2 overpens. 2 overpens. The guns, a little bit disappointing, but given how we've managed to survive for so long here, into a worst case scenario, I would say, as far as up tiers, Super Carrier is about as bad as it gets. It does very well into its own matchmaker. And I suppose if you use your 25% off doubloon ship coupon in the Armory, That's a little better than Black Friday now that I'm thinking about it. I haven't considered that for a while, but that is technically a little better, at least on these tier 9s. Tier 8s at Black Friday typically are a 30% discount. We'll take a look at that whole event closer to that update and when they finally announce the finalized prices. But for now, Navarin, pretty interesting ship. Couple of E games that I had in it, and pretty fun, even with some pretty brutal matchmaker. And here we see over 2 million credits earned on that battle. With blue boosters, premium account, yes, but tier 9 credit earning is pretty impressive. And now that we're back in port, I really got to show you guys this armor, because we kept it angled, so it kept us alive, but it is pretty tough to deal with when you're flat broadside. 340 millimeters here, and yeah, that's going to be the Citadel height for us here. It is very large and very above water here. Bit of turtleback, but notice how it doesn't really go up above the water. So it's really just 340 plus 50 millimeters, or a little lower, it's actually 32. But I think that's where the turtleback is, yeah, helping us a little bit there. So 50. But it's not particularly well armored. You're going to take massive damage onto your broadside. 75, 32, bit of icebreaker at 125. But that Columbo was able to hit us all up here and get a ridiculous amount of sap damage. Pretty good against HE, right? 35 mil deck, allowing us to shatter some more HE. Not being 32 is very, very nice. But it's still going to be taking a decent number of HE hits. We need to find positions where we can keep it angled, take mostly AP shots while we're staying angled, and then not getting focused by a ton of enemy ships, which is why concealment, wanting to push up to islands, was so important for me here. As for the rest of this ship, its main guns, trolly, but you do have a decent enough amount of range. I didn't really shoot much HE. I suppose you could. Fire chance there is decent, as is the alpha damage. I just don't like shooting HE out of my battleships. I don't know, just a weird personal preference thing. I feel a little bit like I'm playing my ship wrong. I should be trying to find broadside opportunities. The build looks like this, at least as far as I was running it. It results in 11% fire chance on all of these secondaries with a very fast reload. I don't know how we lit so few fires with them, but even still, we had some very good games. You saw how valuable this two-pointer skill was in that last battle against the carriers and the airstrikes, allowing us to get back to our already fast damage controls quicker, as well as, crucially, that heal, which has a normal 80-second cooldown. Otherwise, just go for the secondary skills here. And with those fast cooldown damage controls, that's where I thought I could get away without fire prevention. And it's debatable whether I could, but I think we managed to make it work reasonably in today's video. Upgrades, I tried it. I don't think I'd recommend it. Maybe you do this one. Maybe you do this one, secondary range plus main gun reload. But you could also just go full secondaries, which is probably what I would do, considering if I'm playing Navarin, I'm probably not trying to play a ship for its main guns at that point. Although I do have the luxury of having quite a few ships to try, so maybe running some hybrid builds works better if it's one of your only tier 9s, for example. 35-second base reload isn't too bad either. And really, those 360 turrets combined with good concealment, allowing us to swap back and forth from side to side, felt pretty good throughout the video. As I was pushing in, the ability to, whenever I wanted to, change sides of my ship and always have my full gun power there while pushing was really, really comfortable. But that's going to do it for today's video on Navarin. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.